Welcome, everybody. Obviously, Media Days, opportunity for you guys to see our entire team. You've been a couple samples of our guys during the first 8 practices here, but just first totality-wise, obviously, as announced yesterday, to have 10,000 new season ticket holders is truly just incredible. Obviously, hats off to Josh and his crew and all the people with the Family First campaign last year. Got done with the season, talk about the opportunities in front of us. I knew with the returning players that we had, I think we have the 4th most returning players in the conference for all Big Ten players coming back. The most in the Big Ten West, obviously Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State with the most, but to pop in as the most in the Big Ten West, I knew there'd be a lot of excitement just the way things unfolded. I couldn't be more excited about that. For me as a head coach to be able, we actually called the individual that was a 10,000 purchase last. To be through practices 1 through 8. Very excited. Just the way our guys have kind of handled everything. We had our first big scrimmage last night, and more of what we had saw through practices 1 through 7 continued last night. Just have the guys that I think have a huge amount of buy-in. I think they're very hungry. They're very coachable. Obviously, Tank and his crew got those guys ready during the course of the summer to get out of it from a health standpoint that we're at right now. Really, the risk, right, in jeopardy of not being there for our opener would be Matt Bailey, which was helping them understand the moment. The good news is the guys that have kind of been filling in for him have played extremely well, and excited to watch those guys continue to grow. But from an have a lot of good players up front with our two main guys, obviously Julian Isaiah, and then the addition of Josh Kreutz is in position. Tip Ryman coming back is a really is probably playing that we've seen, right? So today, another guy excited about that group at the wide receiver position. Isaiah, Casey, and Pat, 3 guys last year that played a lot of really good football, have continued to grow. Now you throw in some newcomers to the mix, a guy like Kanari Welcher, Malik Elzy, Sean Miller, Ashton had a nice camp, and really excited about that group. And then at the running back room, obviously Reggie and Josh have the most game experience, but now you throw in Caden Fagan and Aiden Lawford in particular. Jordan Anderson's been a little bit hampered with the last week with his back, should join us this week, but those guys have been very impressive. And of course, you all want to know about the quarterback, and competition brings the best out of everybody. It's been very apparent the growth that Luke has had, John Paddock, and really Donovan Leary, and to a certain extent Kirkland Michau. Those 4 guys have been really, really impressive in fall camp. They haven't done anything right, done a lot of really good, and they're continuing to grow. So the competition is very, very intense. I think those guys they're being evaluated on everything they do, including last night and every practice that we are. We've got some growth that we got to have there, but excited about that group overall. Defensively, a lot of good players from a year ago, led up front by Keith and Johnny. I would say that it's nice to have Bryce Barnes. Seth McConnell's another guy that has looked really good as we grow into that room. Inside Denzel and T-Rob had a really good fall camp, and a couple other guys can roll in there. Dylan Davis, he sprained his ankle a little bit, but he'd had a good fall camp. And also Jeremiah Warren, an incoming freshman. We also play Seth in there a little bit. It's nice to see that. Outside backer, I would say our top 3 guys, Gabe Ackus, Seth Coleman, and Alec Bryant, have been very impressive through fall camp. Have some other guys sprinkle in there, which is good to get Zeke Holmes back out there. Jared Beatty's been a little limited, but he's looked good when he's in there, as well as a couple other guys that we can think will factor in there at the inside linebacker position. Tariq has been our guy. 2-year starter, has been very impressive, playing his best football since I've been around him. Communicates very well, very intense, got a great voice, good leadership. Rosiak and Neno Laga, and also James Kreutz. James has gone from about 210 to 215 a year ago this fall to now he's a 230-pound linebacker who looks like he can play every snap in the Big Ten for us. So excited about that room. In the back end, by far the mainstay have been Taz and Xavier Scott. Those guys on the perimeter have been really impressive. T. Strain is not far behind, has been very impressive. A lot of young bucks, Tyson Rook, Sabor, Jaheim, Prince Ford, a new guy, very impressive on the perimeter. Inside, I would say the guy that has really jumped out, Miles Scott, from where he was last spring to where watch him play the game and see where he can go. 2 newcomers, Demetrius Hill and Clayton Bush, have been very, very impressive, very athletic, and make a lot of plays and continue to grow and move forward. Some other guys, Mac Rasetic has been a very impressive fall freshman player, and some other guys that I've been pleased with their growth and see where they are in the kicking game. It's been really good to see Caleb continue where he is. He's actually punting for us as well. They're going to give Caleb a chance to be a starter in all 3 phases, field goal, kickoff, and punt. Hugh Roberson has continued to be pretty good. Breezy's done a nice job in both games as well. And then obviously the 2 freshmen, Declan Dooley and David Alano, have been pretty impressive. So that's a little bit of a recap where we're at. I'll open it up for some easy questions. We'll go from there. Yeah, Caleb was last year even really just, where we were at from a punting standpoint, consistency in every game. He began to punt, and then in the spring he was very impressive. And what we've kind of told that whole group, including the long snappers, is the best are going to play, right? And obviously Hugh and Caleb returning as a punter and a kicker, but David and Declan have been very impressive in fall camp. So we're just really charting every play, every opportunity they have, and Caleb's been pretty impressive as a punter and a really strong leg, and I wanted him to be able to maximize his opportunity for the future as well.
What were the biggest takeaways from the scrimmage in terms of execution?
Yeah, I would say, obviously for us offensively, how we run the ball and throw the ball is going to be paramount to our success, and early down is going to be a big part of that. I think we've been able to identify some players that present some matchup issues for us on the perimeter in the throw game, both Casey and Pat, I think, took their game from a year ago and increased it a little bit. Isaiah's always going to be impressive in the slot, but those 2 guys in particular on the edge are really impressive targets. I think all 4 of the quarterbacks have been very tuned into where they are, how they can get them the ball. I'd say the other big takeaway, obviously Reggie and Josh have been very impressive. I think they've both kind of grown from where they were a year ago, but you throw a Caden Fagan and an Aiden Lawfrey. Aiden took one last night, a little inside zone that he took to the house. He's just a very explosive player that can turn him over, and Caden Fagan is a very impressive athlete, big boy that can run, that's very serious, very competitive. He's also great as left guard on punt, really good in the back end and kickoff return, just very impressed. Our freshman class in general has been very impressive overall.
You had several JUCOs to the roster this offseason. What have you seen in that market where you want to attack that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you go back to our after the first year was completing, wrapping up, obviously we decided to make headlines with a comment that I made about offensive line, where we need to go and what we need to do. And we added Zai and Isaiah Adams, who have been mainstays in our second year. And what I learned from those 2 guys in general, they were both full qualifiers out of high school. So they came in really as JUCO players that were really, in my opinion, under-recruited, underdeveloped. And the impact that we saw once we could get them in January was a huge, huge benefit. So we definitely are looking to repeat that behavior in every class. To me, it's kind of the new wave, like, because of the portal world, I think that world's getting ignored a little bit. And also there are more players getting into it because less players are getting signed out of high school because of the portal world. So it's a compounding effect. But a guy like Alex Kapka-Jones, right, literally just joined us less than a month ago, has probably been the most impressive guy that we didn't know a lot about, right? Like, we saw the film, we liked what we saw. He actually came to camp. We had seen him work out, has a huge catch radius, really catches things extremely well, very diligent. Him in Gio's room has been pretty impressive. So, and then Prince Ford, who was a guy that was really, in again, probably an under-recruited player, a little bit off the radar. We actually found him through social media, to be quite honest. One of our recruiting personnel guys, I think Drake was the first to find him, and we just did his diligence, and we got to where we are. I do believe Des Schuster, when he gets back with us, could, but he's not going to probably be cleared here for the next test he has coming up about 3 weeks from now, and hopefully we'll get him back out there. But, yeah, that's been a market that's been really good for us.
Coach, you said in relation to the QBs that competition brings out the best in people. How would you describe the current state of the QB competition?
Well, kind of like what I said, Luke Altmaier has made the progress from where he was last spring. John Paddock has gotten better. Donovan Leary has gotten better. And Kirkland Michel, those 4 guys are taking all the reps with the 1 and 2s. They continue to be very impressive. I think they have moments where they feel really, really good and areas that they need to improve on. And those 4 guys are continuing to work as best they can.
Had seasons where you've used several running backs at high volume.
Yeah.
What kind of buy-in is required from those guys to maybe understand the dividing of carries?
Yeah, the greatest examples are history, right? And I've kind of really literally said there was a point where a social media post came out about a team that I coached in the past, and it showed a Big Ten championship game that featured a lot of really explosive plays in the running back room. And I shared with that room, right, like there was 4 guys that year. 3 of them had gained 1,000 yards. One had gained, I think Monty Grew gained 998. So we almost had 3 1,000-yard rushers. And the reason they were all successful is just the relief that it showed, right? And Reggie and Josh are both unique style runners in what they do. I'd say Caden, obviously, is an early down freshman back, fits a certain niche. And then Aiden, who can literally play all downs, can be used as a receiver. He kind of comes in as a change of pace back. So those 4 guys in particular, and when we get Jordan Anderson back in the mix, I think they're all very just a unique skill set. And as coaches, we got to maximize what they do best and show them that the best thing they can do is help the team win, and they'll get rewarded because of it.
The success you've had at center and getting those guys to the league, is there anything out of Cruz that you've seen that is comparable to the guys that you've had before?
Well, it's obviously easy to point out, right? But Josh has been raised to be from literally, I'm sure, a very early age when his father gave him, input on that position. He just instinctively got some really good things. He's a great communicator. That center, he's a quarterback of the offensive line, and I would tell you, even be a great question to ask Julian and Isaiah, 2 guys that have played with. In Julian's case, he's played with 2 centers that have been drafted. Where do you see Josh? Josh is early in his career, but he's extremely intelligent, really high football IQ, plays extremely hard. Somebody hit and ran him the other day, his car, when he wasn't there, right? And he was going to be late to practice. I'll let him share the story. But, my first instinct was to call him and because he literally might put hands on people, whoever, he's a very aggressive person and great restraint and demeanor, but that's just how he's wired, right? He's a very intense, competitive kid, plays really good balance. When he sets and anchors his feet, he's really, really strong and impactful. Just really been impressed with him overall.
Coach, you talked about your comment a couple of years ago about the line, and you've been around championship Big Ten teams. Your offensive and defensive line feel like championship caliber?
Yeah, they feel like good football players, right? We're going to take one game at a time. We're concentrating on camp, and we'll get ready for Toledo, and all of our focus is on that. I think anytime you try to jump to the end of the line, not only as a team but within a position group, we have 2 players in Julian Pearl and Isaiah Adams, who in my coaching career are literally 2 of the better guys I've ever had at that position. And obviously I just talked about Josh, whoever ends up being that right guard, right tackle tandem. I think we have a good idea who it is. I think I'm extremely blessed to have Bart Miller as our O-line coach and Barry Lundy as our OC. I think they understand and appreciate what we do in that position. So they have the making of being a very good offensive line. How they fare in a championship world depends on a lot more than just them.
What's Matt's injury? How's that impact that safety?
Matt Bailey?
Yeah,
Matt, going back to last winter, I think it was actually it wasn't in a workout. He was in post-practice or a post-workout just doing some routes and unfortunately had a foot injury that required surgery. This summer was progressing but then had some regression, and we're just being overly cautious. I want Matt Bailey as soon as possible, but one of the things that I always say as coaches, and obviously our medical people are unbelievable, we have to not only just think about the immediate point of him returning, but his future. And it's been my experience with foot injuries in particular, right? Those are ones that you can't rush back, you can't hurry. Not that you have that with any injury, but you have to be overly cautious. So we've literally reached out to Nike. We're getting the best footwork available. A lot of times with a foot injury, sometimes it can involve, not just the foot that was injured, but there's mirror foot on the other side. So we're just checking all the boxes, taking it as slow as we can without, setting it back, and just trying to be really appreciative of what he can be.
Force those transfers to obviously step up. I mean,
Yeah, the good news is, obviously Matt got a lot of reps. One thing I'm not really concerned about is when Matt does get back, which literally he's on a progression now that really, how he returns or when he comes back is greatly based off of how well he responds to his progression and his workload. He literally became weight bearing, right, and is starting to do more this week than he did last week, and vice versa. Got more. I met with JB and the crew this morning about what he's going to do this week, which is more than last week. Because he had so many reps and played in every game and started in the bowl game, I'm not really worried about that cycle as much of getting him into the rotation as I might have been if he had not played last year. But yeah, Clayton Bush, very impressive. He's very athletic. He's got a great ball sense. He's actually a pretty good punt returner. He's got really good ball skills. Demetrius Hill, again, really a high intense football IQ. Played a lot of football a year ago. Both of them have played a lot of football at respective programs they've came from. I would do anything to have literally those guys from their freshman year to be where they are right now, because I think we could really turn them into something even more special than this year ahead of them. That's the only thing through this portal world, right? Like, you look at Alex Kapka-Jones, you look at Isaiah Adams, and you look at Zai. If we had those guys as freshmen, that's my challenge every day to our personnel department, is find me those guys, right? Like, they're not signed. Let's get them here now, because the more you're in our program, the better you become. And I think our players realize that. And these guys that are filling in for Matt, like, they're taking advantage of every opportunity. Have been pretty impressive.
What stood out to you about how Aaron Henry has taken on defensive coordinating in his first camp?
Aaron's, you guys know the story. I've been super impressed with Aaron since he got here. I knew him as a player. I knew him as a young coach, but 3 years ago when we started this thing up, I can't say at that time I'm like, okay, this is my next coordinator. But as this last year unfolded, I knew Walt, that 2 years ago he had a couple opportunities. This year, there were some opportunities that came for him as a head coach he didn't get, and I was preparing for that moment. I had no idea, obviously, that Purdue was going to happen as late as it did. But the part that I knew as soon as that happened was this was the guy. And since he's taken over, just been super impressed. His work ethic, his demeanor, his communication skills. A lot of times you can know a lot of things, but you can't communicate it. Aaron's got an uncanny way to communicate, not just with our players, but I've been very impressed how he handles his staff. Obviously, him and Antonio played together, so unique there. Him and J-Mo played together. Him and Andy Boo have known each other. Charlie Bowen new to the mix. I think Aaron would be the first to tell you how that defensive staff has bonded together and coached, and the way they're playing right now defensively is pretty impressive. Very excited where it's at. Aaron, on top of that, I can't even imagine juggling having two new baby girls at the same time in the middle of camp. So just a very impressive young coach. And the great news is he literally gets better every day.
Dark Angelo was so critical to you guys last year.
As what is?
Dark Angelo was so critical to you guys last year, and it seems like Andy's pretty confident that Rosie and KO can really replicate that kind of production.
Yeah, Dark was a tremendous player, not just on defense, but a really good player for us on special teams. I don't think he started the game until Michigan. And we had three guys last year. It was Tariq, it was CJ, and it was Dark, and then obviously CJ and Dark aren't here, but I think Dylan and Kanena, I was very impressed with both those guys going back to last spring. Even last fall, we were trying to find ways to get Dylan on the field. Dylan, since he came here, has been a very impressive player. He just shows up in all the drills. Kanena, the same thing. He was a high school tailback, literally not signed. He was truly one of the first kids that we kind of recruited to get here. He was, I obviously offered Josh. I think was my first guy offered, but Kanena was the first guy that we went out and did our diligence to find and bring here, and he's been very impressive. Kanena is incredibly instinctual and really powerful, plays a lot of different things. And then now you throw James Kreutz, I would say those four guys, and Ryan Mead. Ryan Mead is kind of that next Dark, he's just incredibly talented, great on special teams, really good football IQ, very coachable. Those five guys in general, I think, make Andy feel really good, and me as a head coach, yeah.
What keyword are you
expectations for Elsie?
What's that?
For Malik Elsie, what do you expect for him?
Yeah, so Malik has been, again, since he came here, been pretty impressive. I tell this, Caden Fagan is number 3, and the first day of practice, you're getting used to new jersey numbers, new faces, and I was on the other end of the field, about 50 yards away, and we have a period at the beginning of practice where the guys are catching kicks and punts, and I saw somebody catch a kick and take off running, and I thought it was Caden, right? I saw the top of the number, I didn't look, and I'm like, okay, Caden's back catching kicks, right? Like, I didn't realize that, and then I got up and I saw Caden was to my right in a run back thing, and I looked and it was Malik Elsie, right? And I'm not saying Malik's the same size as Caden, but he's not that far off. Malik is a very big, very athletic, very fast. I would say through 8 practices, I've been very impressed with the way he catches the ball. There is no lack of confidence in him. He's a guy that believes in his abilities and what they are, and I think he's probably shown his teammates there's a reason for that. Pretty impressive. I think the more rapport he gets with our quarterbacks, I think Coach McDonald has been doing a really good job of, you got a freshman that has a lot of talent, you don't want to overwhelm him, right? And Malik is a very mature, but he's still a freshman. He's got a lot to learn, but I couldn't be more excited about where he's at and where he could possibly get to. Yeah. You guys enjoy the day? What's that? Oh, nice.